Who does not enjoy, when strolling or hiking through our natural world, coming across a true wild animal? Well, you better get ready, as soon you may just bump into a real woolly mammoth out there on one of your walks. No, you have not traveled back to ancient prehistory in a time machine. And no, this is not a sci-fi film shoot. The truth is that scientists will soon resurrect many extinct animals in the not-too-distant future. This famous symbol of prehistory will be transformed into reality, and this may help the natural world as well. The fact is that no animal completely disappears without leaving some part of itself behind. Extinct creatures leave a piece of their genome behind in some closely related animal forms. Applying artificial selection, we can cross closely related species with other similar specimens to achieve the return of a prehistoric creature. While studying the remains of mammoths in the Arctic, a Harvard University team of biologists got incredibly lucky. They managed to extract the entire mitochondrial DNA from a bone that had previously been handed down from generation to generation. It turns out that the mammoth is separated from modern-day elephants by only 44 genes, mainly those responsible for cold weather resistance. In 2015, geneticists successfully implanted some of these chromosomes into the DNA of an African elephant. Interestingly, the mammoth version 2.0 will be somewhat better able to adapt to different environments than its ancestor thanks to improved DNA. It will also be able to thrive in a wider range of latitudes than its forebears, and thanks to the absence of tusks, it will be a disadvantageous target for poachers, unless, of course, someone decide to make fur coats out of its hairy skin. But the Smilodon, or as they were mistakenly called in the past, saber-toothed tigers, might give even the boldest of poachers pause. These prehistoric predators, with their giant, sweeping, saber-like fangs, disappeared from the face of the earth about 11,000 years ago and are considered to be the first animal wiped out due to human activity. Now it's time to atone for this biological sin. The well-preserved remains of a specimen of this wildcat was found in California in the USA with its DNA surviving intact. One can imagine that these resurrected saber-toothed predators might be placed in zoos together with mammoths, undoubtedly pleasing fans of the animated film Ice Age. In theory, scientists could return from oblivion any and all dinosaurs. Again, that's in theory. Paleontologists have been able to discover almost everything about these ancient creatures, even including the number of feathers some species had, and it would seem it remains only to revive them using our latest modern techniques and technologies. But in reality, it doesn't work. Yet with our current technologies, DNA samples only remain useful and recoverable for about 1 million years. That may seem like a lot, but Triceratops, for example, lived 6 to 5 million years ago and has every chance of remaining forever just a skeleton at the museum and a picture in your old-school textbook. So the real Jurassic Park eludes us for the moment. The most we could accomplish at this point is something like a park of the very, very late Cenozoic era, as scientists are for now able to resurrect only those animals that have disappeared relatively recently, prehistorically speaking. The first candidate for such a park might be the perennial ibex, unique in that cloning has already been attempted with this wild, goatish creature. The last individual died quite recently in the year 2000. Thankfully, thoughtful individuals managed to perfectly preserve the animal's DNA. In 2009, scientists tried to produce a miracle, the return of the perennial ibex to the world of the living, but it didn't go so well. The result puzzled everyone. Out of 57 embryos, only 7 led to pregnancy, and only 1 perennial ibex reached full term and was born, and sadly, it died a few hours later. Thus, the perennial ibex has achieved the unique status of being the only animal that has managed to go extinct twice. Scientists attempted to bring another animal back to life on this resurrection tour. The ORAC, the wild ancestor of all cattle, disappeared in 1627, but even after 400 years, its genetic basis is still found in the DNA of modern cows and bulls. The first experiments in this area were carried out in Nazi Germany, but, alas, to no avail. This new breed, called a heck bull, though impressive in size, exhibited too few of the desired traits of its wild ancestor, and subsequently, the Germans found themselves with little time to continue with the project. Now scientists are working hard on the DNA of oryx preserved in bones from archaeological finds, eventually planning to cross one with a domestic cow. Biologists from University College in London have decided to try to reincarnate an animal from a somewhat earlier time. These scientists are attempting to resurrect the Irish elk, also known as the Irish giant deer, which inhabited Europe about 13,000 years ago. This giant beast reached an astounding 6.5 feet or about 2 meters just at the withers, that is, from the hooves to the highest point on the spine, and the distance between the tips of the antlers was more than 10 feet or roughly 3 meters. Amazing. I wonder if ancient peoples used their antlers as a coat rack, or maybe to dry their laundry, but I digress. I also wonder what might happen when these cute little creatures flood England. You can't feed them by hand, and they certainly won't be scared off by the native boxers and spaniels. A number of researchers propose that we might want to try reviving something a tad smaller. One very good option is a famous passenger pigeon. This bird is a vivid example of human mercilessness. Until the 19th century, it was one of the most common species on Earth, with a population of up to 5 billion individuals. But people became so adept at hunting them that by the beginning of the First World War, this bird had entirely disappeared from the planet. The Revive and Restore Project team from the University of California compared the genome of an extinct passenger pigeon to modern relatives and found a similarity with something called a striped pigeon. After the planned introduction of some modified genes into stem cell nuclei, scientists hope to get some specimens with a completely new set of DNA. Given the close relationship between the species and these amazing modern tools, scientists promise the passenger pigeon's return in just a few generations. Good news for car washers, as given the ancient pigeons always moved in flocks, there will be no shortage of customers. Some of you may have guessed at the next entry on the list of candidates. This friendly, gullible creature also suffered at the hands of humans. Yes, I'm talking about the dodo bird. The dodo bird was found only on the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean. Many of you are probably familiar with this creature as the fabulous dodo bird character which appeared in the fairy tale Alice in Wonderland. The unfortunately flightless dodos were completely exterminated in the 17th century. Luckily, some folks decided to stuff some of these birds for posterity. This has now come in handy. After all these years, in their plumage, the bird's DNA has been perfectly preserved. Using technology already familiar to us, we'll be able to introduce this DNA into the zygote of one of the dodo's closest relatives, and voila, the dodo will be back. Surely you might now be asking, why not bring back all the extinct species? Well, in a world where overpopulation is at present a big problem, prehistoric animals would be superfluous at the moment. Biologists must carefully analyze what impact these resurrected species will bring to the ecosystems they are introduced into, if they will contribute to the betterment of our natural world, and will not break some delicate biological balance, then a species has every chance of returning from oblivion. However, even modern technologies cannot guarantee any ancient fauna return to life. The mortality percentage among cloned creatures is at the present prohibitively high. The reasons for this are most likely in the DNA. The nucleus of the donor egg retains a certain genetic memory and resists the influence of the new genetic material. This is why each normal generation of any animal is similar to the previous one, unless for the same reason. We cannot make hybrid cat dogs from a pairing of dogs and cats. At least, not yet. Scientists have been rather reticent regarding another issue. Something from the prehistoric world could devastate or destroy a modern ecosystem. New food chains will emerge, and if some harmless ancient bird can occupy a niche, for example, then a fierce competition and struggle for survival could begin among some hungry and enterprising predators. Therefore, a recreated species, to guarantee that it will not go extinct once more, necessitates being housed in a zoo or something similar, and we are not talking about just a secure cage here. The woolly mammoth and its friends who thrived on Earth 2 million years ago can only survive on vast open territories, and let's not forget that the Ice Age completely changed much of the flora. For example, where these Siberian steppes used to be, now there's only naked tundra. Based on the remains found, the best places for the returned mammoths appeared to be Siberia and Yakutia, the territories of which would need to be returned to their prehistoric states. It is unlikely that the locals will be too happy with such a prospect. However, the net result is likely worth it. Just imagine, an ancient world never before seen by man will appear before our astonished eye from almost nowhere. Yes, there is a fact that the resurrected animals will only be near copies of those prehistoric creatures, and this is why. Remember in the beginning I mentioned that every modern animal has a DNA of its ancestors? Well, in most species, evolution has made numerous changes over millions of years, whereupon the descendants of these ancient animals acquired new and altered forms. Yes, the perennial goat may be able to be resurrected from a surrogate goat mother, but how can a scientist resurrect a feathered dinosaur whose nearest relative is a chicken? To derive such a ginormous animal from such a diminutive bird would possibly take hundreds of years and thousands of intermediate steps, with each evolving specimen needing to be housed somewhere to await their mating to produce the next evolutionary step, and so on and so on. Yes, in such a scientific setting, it would certainly be exciting to wake, but even if successful, even with the best of results, it would still be just a copy. So really, the best we can do now is protect the natural world we still have. That way in the future scientists won't even have to contemplate restoring animals lost from our era. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Click on the bell and be the first to know about new videos. And stay with us because the best is yet to come.